Start. Hi, everybody. We are going to get started in just a moment with the Glowforge demo. I'm really glad that you can join us. I've been looking forward to this for a long time. Should we give it a few more minutes?
I think we can get started because it will be recorded. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, super. Well, hi, everybody. My name is Brian. I'm really glad that you could join us today at the Westside Maker Fair. I'm really excited to introduce our collaboratorian, Tess, who is going to be taking us through the Glowforge today. Please stay tuned. Afterwards, we'll have a Q&A session, and we also have a survey which we'd love you to please answer. It's very quick. It helps us so much. We'd really appreciate it. Please and thank you.
Thanks, Brian. My name's Tess, and I'm the collaboratory librarian for both Hillsborough Public Libraries. And I'm so excited to show you guys the Glowforge. It is not something that is available quite yet for patron use because the collaboratory is not quite yet available for patron use. But I have a plan for getting it ready. It will involve some reservations and some volunteers to help operate. So if you're inspired after watching this presentation and you're interested in volunteering or just interested in learning more, you can always contact me at the library. I'm just going to go ahead and share a video that I made of a project that I created on the Glowforge, and then I'm going to stick around for questions. If questions come up in your mind and you want to put them in the chat so you don't forget, please do that. We'll be taking a look at that. And so with that, I'm going to share my screen. And we'll start this.
Hi, welcome back to the Collaboratory at Hillsborough Brookwood Library. I am here to introduce you to a pretty exciting piece of equipment. If you were here pre-pandemic, you probably saw us getting ready to set up our Glowforge laser cutter. And I'm not sure when we're going to open again, but when we do, it should be available for patron use after some initial training. But I wanted to take this time at the Maker Fair to share the Glowforge with you. So right behind me, here it is. It's a pretty fun piece of equipment. I'm going to wheel us over there. The most exciting part is this button because that means we're going. I'm going to go ahead and turn this on. And it's a switch right behind here. You can kind of get a sense of what it looks like when the lights are on. Some of the components are, this is our laser tube. We don't ever want to touch that with our hands. We can use a gloved hand or a wipe to clean it, but you don't want to touch, you don't want the oils on your fingers to get on it. Let's see if I can wheel us back a little bit here. So this is our lid. We'll lift this when we're ready to put material inside. And right under this Glowforge bar is a little camera, and that camera can detect what's inside the print bed, including what kind of materials we're going to use. Some examples of materials are acrylic. This is an orange acrylic. We have blue. We have a few different colors. On each piece of material, there'll be a QR code with the information about the material. And this camera will download this QR code and tell the application what piece of material it's being asked to print on. And that information will go right into the app and help with the depth of etching and cutting. It'll know exactly the depth of each piece of material. That's all part of that QR code. Because of that, we require you to use materials that we're providing you because we are using Glowforge approved materials. So we have wood, a little bit of leather, some fun acrylic, and some draft board. If you have requests for purchases, we are taking requests. If you have a specific project that you'd like to create with the specific Glowforge material, you're welcome to purchase it on your own and bring it into the library to cut. And I think you just go to shop.glowforge.com to access those materials. Otherwise, you're welcome to use the materials in the library. We'll have some rules around how often you can use it, and there'll be some registration to sign up to use it because we'll need to have a volunteer present at each print. We'll get into those details later. Today, I just wanted to show you the Glowforge and in action. So hang on with me and we'll get started shortly. Okay, so today we're going to make, I'm going to show you how I'm making our Maker Faire keychain. And we're going to start with some medium maple plywood. And you can see that I've already done some test cuts here, and that's totally fine. The Glowforge will know where it can print, and it won't, or cut, and it won't do it over a place that's already been cut. So if you see a piece of material you're interested in, it's totally fine to put it in there, even if it has some work already cut out of it. So I'm going to just lift our board, and then I'm going to place this just inside underneath our print head. And I'm going to get us a little bit closer so you can kind of see what's going on. You should be able to see the camera here, and the camera is going to read this plywood QR code so it'll know what we're trying to print on. So when you have created your item, so I've created this this little Maker Faire robot key ring. You can create it in Adobe Creative Suite. You can create it on GIMP. You can really create it anywhere. The final project should be a PDF, or if it's a vector file, and then it would be it could be an Illustrator file, or it could be a JPEG or a PNG. The file type really depends on what you want to do with it. And this file, I want to engrave the robot out of the circle, and I want to cut the hexagon around it. So we have a dashboard that we go to from this cloud-based app, so app.glowforge.com, and then we have a library login. And I want to go into my current Glowforge is showing me this piece of wood I've just laid in, and it's a medium maple plywood. It knows that because of the QR code that's on the plywood, but if it couldn't read the QR code, or if there was some sort of error, then you could adjust the material type in here. So we're going to just keep it where it is because that's correct. And what's great about this is that Glowforge knows their own products. They know the depth, and so they know the thickness for engraving and for cutting. And I want to make sure that my layers are correct. So I am going to engrave this layer, and then I'm going to cut this layer. And your cut file should be at the very end of your, or the very last step. So you wouldn't want your cut file to be first because it will cut. This is the order of operations. If it cuts your wood first, it actually releases out of the block of wood, and then when it goes to engrave, it's not going to be centered nicely. So I like to make sure that we engrave first and we cut last. And then I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to do a Control-C, Control-V, and I'm going to copy this because I want to make a bunch of these key rings. I'm hoping that we have a big turnout for the Maker Faire, and everybody who registers gets a free key ring. So I want to make as many as I can and fit as many as possible into our workspace here. And I'm just copy pasting to get as many in here as I can. You don't want to overlap your cut lines because that's where the laser is going to cut, and if it overlaps, then it's going to mess up your other image. This one's grayed out because it's actually going beyond this margin. So I'm going to get rid of that, but first I'm just going to copy this whole row, paste it down, and then I'm going to shift arrow, just kind of snug it in there. I want to be mindful of the material usage, and so I don't want to waste any. It kind of kills me that I can't put one there, but I might put a miniature one there. I'll make one a little bit smaller, show you how to do that. So I'm going to copy paste this and just shift this down. I'm using the shift key and the arrow key just to get this nestled right in. And then I will put like a little one here. So I'm going to do a Control-C, Control-V, and then I'm just going to use my corner here and just drag it so it's a little bit smaller, and I'll set it in there. It looks like I might have moved this one. Adjust that, and then I think I could probably fit 2 of these little guys, and maybe I'll have a pair of earrings here or a mini keychain. Maybe, I don't know if I can fit it. Oh, I can fit it over here. I'll put one there and one here. It turns blue when it's able to do the thing. So, and I can actually select all of this, move it over a little. And same with this, I can select all of these and move them over a little. I want to make sure everything's fitting nicely. And I could fill up this whole area. I'm just gonna zoom in and make sure I don't have any overlaps. I only have a couple hours here in the building, so if I filled up this whole thing, it'd probably be about a 4-hour print job with all the engraving. But because I don't have 4 hours, I'm just gonna get this one over here, so I'm utilizing my space. I'm just gonna do half of them for now. I'll do the other half next time I come in. So I'm good to go. I'm gonna go ahead and tell it to print, and it's gonna prepare my print. It's just communicating now with the Glowforge that there's a print ready. It's giving all the information and the layout, and it's going to calculate the amount of time it's going to take. Uh-oh, I noticed an error. I'm actually going to cancel this. So you probably noticed it before I did, and if you did, kudos to you. I just had this overlap, and I really don't want it to print that way. Let me just scan this and make sure I've got everything. Everything else looks good to me. This is sort of the boring part, but it is important to have a sense of how long your print is going to take, because the Glowforge is going to be available for reservations, and they're probably going to be in 2-hour blocks. So you're not going to have all day to get your items printed. In fact, I would recommend getting your file pretty well figured out before your reservation time even starts, and then that way you're able to just come in, load up your app, get your file ready to print and then just print. So this is going to take me 2 hours and 15 minutes. And it's magic time. I get to push the button on my Glowforge to begin, and I'll show you what that looks like. That moment when you send your file to the Glowforge and the magic button appears. Okay, so we've already run our Glowforge print and all of the pieces have been cut and etched, and this is a pretty fun reveal. So I'm going to just lift the material out and you'll see that all the parts that were cut aren't there anymore. Well, they exist, but they exist here on this plane. And let me see if I can get you in a little bit more. Yeah. So each of these has been cut and etched. We have some little ones too. And let's see if I go to lift one. The little hole fell out and it went into the tray here. So that's totally fine because we can empty out that tray. Oh, you can kind of see the the dust where all the other ones were. So our next step is going to be to peel off this layer, the sticker layer that's on top. So we'll peel off the sticker layer and then we're going to add our metal pieces so that this will turn into a keychain. Forgive the noise, the Glowforge is still working, but I wanted to show you what happens once our pieces are cut. I have a collection here. And you might notice it looks a little burnished or burnt. And what it is that there's this sticker paper that's on the pieces already. So you can peel it off. I like to use the scraper tool from the Cricut. You can use any sharp tool, even a fingernail. And when you peel it off, you can see it's like a nice, just to compare. Together. So this is what it looks like before you peel off the tape, and then there's like a nice cleaner version. And so I'm actually going to work on removing the tape off of this. It's a little tricky because there's tiny little letters, but this tool I find is really helpful, and we'll go through that. All right. So thank you for bearing with me on the video of that process. I have a real one with me here. It's very, very exciting. I just think that little robot guy is so cute. So I'd love to hear any questions that you have about that demonstration or about the Glowforge. If there's I don't know if I can see I can see the chat. So you can just unmute yourself and ask, or you can type into the chat if you're shy.
Yeah, I have my eye on the chat. If questions come in. Okay, we have a question from Julia. Can you cut adhesive-backed fabric?
So You can cut adhesive-backed fabric. I would recommend doing that on our Silhouette digital die cutter. I would be nervous about doing that in the Glowforge because it's like a laser cutting it, and I feel like a fabric might be flammable. So, so I guess I would default to our policy, which will be if it's Glowforge approved, if it's something you can purchase in the Glowforge shop, then yes. But I haven't seen any adhesive-backed fabric there. But you could create your own file using Illustrator or GIMP or Inkscape and create a cut file for the Silhouette, which is a different piece of equipment in the collaboratory, but would still give you what you need there.
I think you may have just addressed it, but Shino has a question. Where or what app or program is used to design? And
Yeah, so any design program that you have access to, like if you have access to Adobe Creative Cloud, then you could create something in Illustrator or InDesign or Photoshop. But you don't have to have access to those things to create a file. You could create a file using free software like GIMP or Inkscape. And both of those software applications are downloaded on our collabtops, which are laptops that are used in the collaboratory. So you could come into the building, use a collabtop, access that software, and create your own files. You can also, Glowforge has an incredible library of projects that if you just want to like play with lasers and come in, there's a library of resources that we have, some projects that we have access to using, if you wanted to make a pair of earrings out of leather, you could just upload that pre-designed file and make the earrings. Or there's like a coffee cup warmer or holder, like those like Starbucks cardboard ones, except it's made out of wood. So you could create, you could just choose that file and print that on wood. So if you're coming in as a total beginner and you're just wanting to get a sense of like what this thing can do, there are pre-made projects you can just access. If you're wanting to design something yourself or even modify those earrings or that coffee cutter, that's when you would need to learn how to access either the free software or other software that you might have access to outside of the library. And that's kind of a whole different session, right? Like the designing of a file, of a digital file is different than like operating the Glowforge, but it is a precursor if you're wanting to do your own designs.
So leapfrogging from that, I have a question from Julia. Is there always someone there to advise you?
Yes, so typically in the collaboratory space, it's very much a DIY space. So most of the tools you can access, whether it's a 3D printer or a sewing machine or paper crafting area, it's really meant for you to be able to just dive in and kind of figure things out on your own with staff to kind of guide you to resources available, like a user manual or some tutorials. But with the Glowforge, that's where there is one exception, because it is such a powerful tool and it is so complex that we will be requiring volunteers to be on site when those reservations for the Glowforge open up. They're actually considered laser safety officers. So they're there to make sure that our laser safety guards are on and make sure that the equipment is being used appropriately and that everything, that you guys are safe and that the library is safe, that the materials that are being used are the ones that are allowed to be used. And then they'll be there to guide you for your projects. But one thing I'll say is and I kind of alluded to it in the video, but the print jobs can take quite a few hours, and the reservation times will probably be limited to about 3 hours. And I don't know if you remembered, but in the video, to make like 30 of these little keychains, it was about 2 hours and 14 minutes. So if you're coming in to use the Glowforge, but you need to like create a file or do something like that, that's not enough time. You would want to prepare your file ahead of time. And for that, there may be volunteers in the collaboratory that could help you. I'd like to work on developing a training that you can access on YouTube, on our YouTube channel in the library, just to get you started on the basics, because a lot of that software can be pretty complex. But like I said, if you're just getting started, there are some preloaded projects that you can just click and print, which is how I would recommend starting.
Okay, we've got about 4 minutes left and a lot of questions. So many great, like they're all great questions, and it kind of kills me. You can't ask all of them.
We can, Brian, we can extend up until 2:15. So if they've signed up for a 2 o'clock session, that is still going to start at 2 o'clock. I think we've got our live make and take. This is being recorded, so I don't want you to miss the live make and take when you can just go back and listen to this on YouTube. But if you can stick around, I'm happy to answer all the questions until 2:15.
Super cool. All right, then. Jennifer asks, do you have suggested resources for learning how to create those vector files to be used on the Glowforge?
You know, I don't have a list offhand, but I would recommend looking at GIMP. It's GIMP, or Inkscape, which is INKSCAPE, I think, unless it's spelled kind of fun. I don't know if there's a fun spelling. But both of those softwares are free to download, and they should have tutorials as part of their software package. I would also encourage you to check out LinkedIn Learning on our WCCLS resource page. I can't be 100% that we have GIMP or Inkscape, but I'm like 90% sure we have some sort of Adobe Creative Suite tutorials. Also, you could just go to adobe.com and learn those tutorials. It's a very rich process. The software for designing visual graphics. So you can learn some basics, but it could also just be a lifelong learning to access all of that stuff. But I would also just say, if you're interested in Glowforge in general, the Glowforge community is really, really strong and rife with content. And that's like I think just starting with glowforge.com, you should be able to access community resources, and you can read tons of boards. You can see what other people have created and be inspired. I mean, you could even go to Etsy and just type in Glowforge and see like the incredible things people are creating. I've seen some like wood cuts that are hand painted, and they're just incredible. So I would start with those online resources right now. And then I'm hoping to just build that kind of programming into the collaboratory, but I don't have anything to point you to just yet about that. That's a great question.
Yeah. So we are almost at 2 o'clock, and I am going to open up this quick, fast 3-question survey. It helps us so much if you can answer, take the time to respond to it. And I'm going to share that out to you right now. And I'll leave it open for a few minutes. And while it's open, I'll ask a few more questions.
I see one that asked about fees, and I just want to clarify that all the Glowforge equipment and materials, that's all free to use at the library. As I mentioned in the video, if you have a specific thing that you want it, like you're making a Catan game board and you want to build it with this cherry wood, and we don't have the cherry wood, but you need like, you have like a specific project in mind, you're welcome to purchase that on your own and bring it in. We'll know it's Glowforge approved because of that QR code. So don't peel that off. Keep that attached. But Yeah, otherwise the material's free to use. That's one thing I'm really proud of that our library can offer is there's not any fee for any use in that in either collaboratory.
Here's a question that I'm really curious about. If you make a file, how do you split out the layers to make a cut versus engraving?
Yeah, so if you, so I'm really familiar with Adobe Illustrator, so I can speak from that, which I just know the library can't offer right now. But how I do it in Illustrator is I create, I mean, it's color. So you create two different layers, and one layer is blue or whatever color you want, and the other layer is pink. And when you add your file into Glowforge, even if you save it as a PDF and upload it into the Glowforge app, Glowforge knows that there's two layers, and it'll usually assign them correctly. It'll usually know you want to engrave this layer and you want to cut this layer. And sometimes it doesn't get it right. So it's good to check on the menu what it's been assigned to, because you can change the assignation. But yeah, it's just color. That's the difference, layers and colors.
Okay. Eric asks, is the Glowforge the one with the pass-through slot? And Eric, I'm not, do you understand that question? Because that.
Yes. So the answer is yes, it has the pass-through slot, but the pass-through slot won't be available for use because it's also where our laser safety lock covers, because we're operating it in a public space, and because people of all ages and sizes are allowed in the collaboratory, the laser beams can actually be accessed through that little pass-through slot. And it's a perfect kid height for like nailing kids in the eyes with those lasers. So we have our laser safety guard actually covers up that pass-through slot, and that's not going to be available to unscrew for use in the collaboratory. So the great thing about the pass-through slot is if you have a really large piece of material, it can just kind of go right through. You're not limited by the bed size, but for library use, you are. That's a great question.
So pass-through slot, not good for.
Not good for eyeballs.
But helpful nevertheless.
Yeah.
Eric asks, how can we reserve time with the Glowforge?
So that system isn't up yet, but it's a reservation system very similar to our study room reservations, and you'll be able to access it through the collaboratory webpage. There's not a link, it doesn't exist yet, so there's not a link for me to share out. It will be something that we'll be promoting pretty heavily on social media once it's open. But there'll be some parameters around it. A lot of it's based on what kind of, how many volunteers I can get to cover each day. It might just be one appointment a day for 3 days a week. If I get more volunteers that are able to come in more frequently, then I, the more support I have for that program, the more slots I can offer. The slots will also be limited, similar to our study rooms. One reservation per person per, like whatever, 2 weeks, so that one person's not monopolizing that time. The idea of the collaboratory is to offer experiences to people who otherwise don't have access to this kind of equipment. And while we want to support your projects and your wish list of getting things done, we also want to make sure that we're considering equity and making sure everybody has access to that cool machine. And since there's only one, I know that it'll be a really a hot ticket item to use, and I want to be able to offer that up for as many people as possible. So I did see another question I wanted to reference, but there's quite a bit going through. Brian, do you see any that pop out at you?
Let's see, there's a question from Megan. What is the link to see what is available in the collaboratory?
Oh, that's a good question. Brian, do you think you could go to our,
Sure, I'll go ahead and pull that link for
yeah,
you.
so that's on
And
our
I'll post it in the chat.
library web page. And it's going through some updates. And so I'm not sure how accurate it is right now. Our collaboratories are undergoing some minor changes. And so hopefully once we're able to reopen, which we do not have a date for that yet, once we're able to reopen that part of the library, then all of that information should be on that web page for the collaboratory. Right now, I know 3D Print to Go has been a really popular option for folks. So that's like a big thing that's on our current web page.
Okay, I found the link and I'm about to post it, right?
Thanks, Brian.
Collab. I don't want to misspell collaboratory.
It's a made up word, but yeah, it can still be misspelled.
There we go. Okay, and I am going to go ahead and close the poll. So if you filled that out, please, and thank you for that. Tyler asks, do you train the volunteers?
Oh, yes. Oh, absolutely. There's a whole, it's, you know, when working with lasers, it's really important that everybody is super comfortable with all the safety that's around it. And it's a level 4 laser, which is at that level, you're looking at like potential eye, like blindness or burning. When we cover that pass-through slot with the guard, that demotes the laser to a level 1 laser, which is like what you can buy at the dollar store to point at the wall or make a cat chase it around. So so it is with the guard in place, with all those safety precautions in place, it's a level 1 laser. But yeah, all of the volunteers get thoroughly trained. I never want to put anyone, even staff, in a position where they feel uncomfortable or unsafe operating equipment or helping patrons. So yeah, that's a great question.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
How can our audience collect a keychain?
Oh, that's a great question. So I hope that when you registered for this session or for the Maker Fair, you realize that you could come in and get a free maker kit. There were 100 made. I know that there's still a handful at Shoot Park Library and at Brookwood Library. So every kit has this plus the materials to make the next session that Serena's running right now, the live make and take. And some of them have USB. We kind of, whatever we had, we could, to delight and surprise you, we were able to put in there. So if you didn't get one and you want one, just head over to the library, first come, first served. I think we've maybe got 20 or 30 left between both libraries. But yeah, it could be yours.
Excellent. And let's see, there was a question on measurement.
Oh, from David.
Yes.
So,
what the,
sorry, go ahead, Brian.
the smallest cut that the Glowforge can make? Is there pixel to millimeter conversion?
I don't know. Like that's something where I would refer you to the Glowforge community. There is probably a conversion there from pixels to millimeters, but that's I do not know. I didn't get that involved in the process. And the beautiful thing is you don't have to be that knowledgeable in order to operate the Glowforge, but if you want to really dig deep into the science behind it, there's a whole forum for that, several in fact. So it is helpful to have those forums like for etching and for depth. It's particularly around acrylic. I find that really difficult to work on, but yeah, my knowledge is pretty surface around the Glowforge. You know, it's like safety first, and then how do we make some fun stuff? And then the next level down, I am not an expert on that.
I am don't have the answer either. It's my understanding that pixel width depends on the actual screen resolution. So it's relative. It's not any one precise measurement.
That sounds right to me. Like that line, that LPI, lines per inch. Yeah, so I don't know. I think it can do pretty small. I mean, I know this isn't going to focus really well, but I had some pretty detailed etching here, and it nailed it. So I think it's pretty precise, and it can go pretty small.
And excellent. Well, let's see. I think this might be all of the questions that we have today. So I'd like to thank Tess for showing us through the Glowforge today. It was super. Thank you so much.
Oh my gosh, my pleasure. It's such an exciting piece of equipment. I just cannot wait to share it with as many people as possible.
And thank you all for coming today. Please stick around for more Maker Faire coming up shortly.
Thank you.
Bye.